Hello and welcome back to the Jacksonville History Show. I'm Emily Rutherford-Liska and I'm Executive Director of the Jacksonville Historical Society. With me in this segment of the show is Lisa Shepard, and Lisa is the Historic Preservation Planner for the City of Jacksonville's Planning and Development Department. And Lisa just finished, and welcome Lisa.
Hi.
You just finished what is really your most anticipated programming of the year at the city's Historic Preservation Commission, which is a commission that your division staffs.
Yes.
And those are the Preservation Awards. They're annually in May, which is Preservation Month.
Yes, indeed.
And you actually call them the Jacksonville Historic Preservation Commission Awards.
Yes, annual award ceremony.
Annual award ceremony. And I will say, this is very selfish on my part, usually the Jacksonville Historical Society walks away with one or two or more, and we should. We are dedicated to history and preservation, so indeed we should have projects good enough to meet that mark. And this year there were a staggering number of just wonderful projects and individuals so deserving of these awards. It's always a real education for me to attend the ceremony that you really put together, Lisa. You do a marvelous job, and I think at this point maybe we should just get underway and the viewers can see what people are doing to celebrate history, education, preservation, and the individuals and in some cases corporations and businesses and groups that make all of this possible in our city to keep history on the forefront.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and we'll start actually with a sad note. Some of the really important people who have been lost to us this year in history, and among them, let's see, maybe you can help me out with all the names, because so many important people. Lisa Neary was lost to us this year.
Yes, she did a lot for, she was basically a champion and fighter of the Springfield Historic District, obtained some grants to beautify their parks, and was personally involved with the rehabilitation of some houses there. We also have had Hazel Margaret Dolly Chitty Day.
And everyone knows her as Dolly Day.
There you go. And she teamed up with Helen Lane to restore 23 homes in the Riverside, Avondale area, not for profit, but just because of their love for the neighborhood.
Amazing woman. And Ike Williams.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
A great community advocate, civil rights advocate, educator, journalist, and historian who did a lot for the for the African American community. And we do this at the beginning of each of our award ceremonies to kind of do it in their honor. The first category we have is Heritage Education and Publication, and I've grouped all the four publications that we honored this year. Thunder on the River, The Civil War in Northeast Florida by Daniel Schaefer.
That's a premier book on the Civil War for those who have not seen this yet. Came out in March. Civil War buffs have to have this book. Keep going there.
A History of Florida, The Old St. Nicholas Cemetery by Dr. Kay Gilmore.
A lot of people know Dr. Gilmore.
And The Tale of Two Gardens by Sally Spangler Barnett, and A Legacy in Bloom, Celebrating a Century of Gardens in the Cummer. And both of these are on the Cummer Gardens, and the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens was also recognized.
Beautiful books.
Listing of them. We also recognized a marker program for Arlington and Durkeeville. This was made possible through a Comcast Foundation grant, and it resulted in 6 markers being placed highlighting the history of Durkeeville, an early African American neighborhood northwest of town. There was also 23 markers identifying places in the greater Arlington area, one of which was the Norman Studio site.
So this gives us a good chance to thank Comcast and that grant program they have.
That's right.
Thank you, Comcast. This is wonderful, wonderful.
There are many, many organizations involved with that.
Yes.
And, well, lo and behold, an award for the Jacksonville Historical Society, the World War II Oral History Project, and you could probably say a couple of things on that. But basically, this made possible by the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville, and just recorded these oral histories from local residents that were here during the time of the war. It was very interesting to look at it online. And doing some of the research and putting this together.
And any viewers listening who were in Jacksonville at the time of the war and would like to have an oral history interview with the Jacksonville Historical Society, they should contact us, okay?
There you go. Preservation projects and services, the Lakeshore subdivision gates. These type of gates were very popular in the land boom era of the 20s. and many of them have been lost. The Lakeshore Area Preservation Society made sure that theirs were not and had them restored with the help of Councilman Michael Corrigan and Warren Jones, and they even had it locally designated as a historic site and therefore is now protected. We also have the history of Riverside Avondale, a video and exhibit booth in the Riverside Arts Market. And basically this was a project by Riverside Avondale Preservation that they basically went over the history of their neighborhood, all the wonderful architectural styles, a variety of architecture that they have, the parks. It's a very walkable community, very lovely place to live. And the neighbors identified that there were a number of threats that could have really affected that character, things like highway expansions and improper zoning, and they organized and created Riverside Avondale Preservation, and ever since then that nonprofit has done a lot in preserving and promoting and improving that neighborhood.
RAP is a dynamic organization and another award well deserved.
And of course, another one for the Jacksonville Historical Society, the History Student Internship Program between them and the University of North Florida Department of History. And this is a great opportunity for students to get hands-on experience in dealing with archival materials and historical documents. And at the same time, the Historical Society gets to gain by having those items cataloged and made available to the public.
Very proud of our interns and UNF. What a great job they're doing there.
Another project was MetroJacksonville.com, and they've done a really great job of increasing public awareness about Jacksonville's history and historic neighborhood issues. And some of the pictures that you're seeing here was a series they did on the ghosts of Jacksonville's past, where they took a modern photo and a historic photo and superimposed them on one another, so you could see the loss of fabric in the urban core and some of the great buildings that we've lost over the years. They've also done some articles on neighborhood issues that were happening in the historic districts, a pending demolition and some zoning issues, and it just really got people talking about what's important to their neighborhood.
I think this is the first time you've recognized an online site for their contributions.
And it's becoming more and more important.
I'm very excited. It was a fabulous award to hear about, and it's really perked me up. I mean, I knew about the site, but it makes me even prouder of what they're doing and what they're bringing to a younger audience and getting younger people involved with history and preservation in this community.
There you go.
Good award.
The other category we have is architecturally compatible new construction, and we had two. 2618 Herschel Street. The owner of this, basically they were putting in their commercial office building into the Riverside Avondale Historic District, and it was going to be located on a fairly residential street, so the architect Doug Lane came up with more of a residential design, and it was on a recent home tour, and there were people that actually debated the owner as to whether or not it was really new construction or an old building that had been renovated.
And I'm going to tell you, but you look at this and it looks like a perfectly maintained older, it's just beautiful. It looks like an older home. Beautiful, beautiful. Look, it fits in the neighborhood. That is the compliment. Just wonderful.
The next project we have is 3rd and Main. This is another new construction made possible by Accessory Companies, 3rd and Main LLC. They were the developer. Ruth and Donovan was the architects. They are now known as Trans Systems, and SRG Homes and Neighborhoods were the contractor. And it's the first mixed-use structure that's gone into the Springfield Historic District. It's got a number of retail shops and restaurants on the first floor, really providing a new synergy to Main Street in Springfield.
Have you been there?
Oh yes,
it's got great, isn't
great
it?
Restaurants.
Yes. Thrilled at 3rd and Main.
Yes.
For everybody. Yes.
And then we have our commercial residential rehabilitation category. The first one is a residential structure at 1022 Bar Street. And this was an interesting story of Jim and Diana Martin, who basically were looking for a starter home and came across this one. It had been chopped up into different apartments and had been badly altered on the front. They moved into one of the units that was very poorly maintained and started restoring the building room by room as tenants moved out, and it is now their home for their 3 children.
An amazing job. Amazing.
Here's some interior photos of some of the work they did. The next one is the Havertys Building, also known as the old YMCA building. This was designed by Henry John Clutho. It is now known as the Jake Godboll City Hall Annex. It had basically been out of use for a number of years and was set derelict. It's very close to Hemming Plaza, and the Jacksonville Police and Fire Pension Fund took over the building and restored it as city offices. They also applied green technology to it and earned its status as LEED Gold certification, which is the second highest rating for a green building, making it energy efficient and water efficient. And it's actually a good project to have this year because the theme for Preservation Month was Old is the New Green, showing how historic buildings and the green movement work hand in hand. And then the last two is the overall preservation service.
Now we can talk about these for just a few minutes because the first winner was Ed Miller. Ed Miller is in his 8th decade and getting close to his 9th decade, as a matter of fact, if not in it. And Mr. Miller has just been prolific in his books on the area's maritime history. He's published about a dozen books at this point, and many of them about the St. Johns River, particularly the steamboats on the St. Johns River. And it just is a mammoth contribution to Jacksonville history, and we're so excited about that. In addition, he has been a major contributor to the Laurie Young Aviation Historical Society, the local railroad historical societies, oh goodness, the Maritime Museum, and the Jacksonville Historical Society. So it was an overall preservation award that was so well deserved for Ed Miller, who is a Jacksonville treasure trove of history and history production. A great man, and of course he was there to get the award, and I hope he's as thrilled as we all were. And the other award winner was a man also so near and dear to us, Robert Broward, the local architect, who's known for a lot of his modern movement architecture. And when Bob Broward was a young man, he befriended the then 77-year-old Henry Clutho, who had been a noted architect of Jacksonville's history, but who had sort of become unknown as the young Buxton architects took over. After all, he was 77 years old at the point, and Bob Broward would befriend him, and he would realize upon meeting Mr. Clutho that he needed to capture his great works around Jacksonville in some way, and he ended up writing a major history book called The Architecture of Henry Clutho, the Prairie School Style in Jacksonville, or the Prairie School Style. And of course, Mr. Clutho is a noted architect through Florida's history as well. But Bob Broward is our treasure, and Bob, of course, published this book on Henry Clutho. And I'll never forget hearing the story, Lisa, that at the time Governor Childs, Lawton Childs, was trying to get a hold of a copy, this is years ago, probably before you were born, trying to get a hold of a copy of the book on Henry Clutho by Bob Broward, and they were sold out, and he couldn't find one anywhere. Well, the Historical Society stepped up in 2000-ish, and we republished, I think it was 2004, and we republished The Architecture of Henry Clutho in even a larger format. And so that was an exciting project.
Beautiful book.
Thank you. It is a beautiful book, and now it's available to all, and that is exciting to know. But of course, Bob has contributed in so many other ways. He still offers symposiums on a lot of mid-century modern architecture, and is quite the local hero, and is producing a fabulous piece of work. And I understand the secrets of North Florida history are just crammed in this book on the Broward family. And of course, he's part of the legendary Broward family of North Florida.
Probably a future award winner.
I'm sure it will be award winning. And by the way, Jacksonville Historical Society will publish that as well. We have a few minutes to reflect. Of all the awards, do you have a particularly favorite category any year? I mean, you have to.
I think that I normally deal with design issues with a city, and so always the rehabilitation awards are quite interesting. And the ones that are done by just normal individuals like the Martins are always a big hit at the award ceremony. I mean,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
if there was an applause meter, they actually won the top honors. And
Yeah,
just seeing
you're
the
right.
before and afters are
Yeah.
incredible. And again, the Havertys Building is really a great example of how preservation is kind of the ultimate in recycling and really truly green by nature. So I think that would be the other favorite that I have this year.
It's so neat that your heart is really where your work is every day, seeing these buildings in Jacksonville saved and restored. And when you say that you do design review for the city, we have just about a minute left. Explain what design review is for people.
Well, once something is protected through our local designation program, it is preserved. Anytime that somebody goes to do a project that might impact that structure or site, there's a review that takes place, and that's where my office comes into play. But truly, Jacksonville's buildings and the architecture was what motivated me to going into historic preservation for my education, and I'm very thrilled to be working here today.
And that's neat.
Saving some of the same buildings that actually prompted me to get into the field.
Isn't that nice to know? That it is, that you care so much about Jacksonville and its buildings, that and I could always tell these awards give you such a big thrill, and I'm not surprised that these homes and these structures that are nearly lost to us, seeing them brought back to life, are what give you all your excitement. Now, is there a way people can go online and read up on these awards and find out, look in detail?
Well, I'm hoping that the Jacksonville Historical Society will post it on their website.
It is done, then, Lisa.
Okay, good
so
deal.
People can go. So for all those viewers, let me just say as we sign off, that for people who want to know more about these award winners and award-winning projects and what your office does, they can go then to www.jackshistory.com, www.jackshistory.com. And Lisa, it's been a delight to have you. Thank you for being here, presenting the award winners. And for now, we're history. Thanks a lot.